Hello, students of world history. Today we are doing Eastern and Southern African civilizations. This is the very last lecture in Unit 4. This is Unit 4, Part 5. The east coast of Africa is very important for African history. You might remember that the Bantu people migrated from the western parts of Africa, and they went to really spread throughout all of Africa, but of course, had to stop at the eastern coast, the coast on the Indian Ocean, and they settled there and created some city-states that really developed into some very important, very wealthy trading centers around the year 1100 or so. Kind of like what you had seen with the kingdom of Aksum, these coastal cities are midway points or mid-trade points between products that you might find in Africa and things and products that you might find from other parts of the world being traded across the Indian Ocean. And so some of the things that this East Coast was able to get their hands on, these East Coast cities were able to get their hands on, were African products like leopard skins and gold and tortoise shells and ivory from elephant tusks, and then also, sadly, slaves. Now, these Bantu people who had settled on the coast were trading, of course, with people from Arabia, people from Persia, people from India, and they were going across the water, and the people from those other places were coming across the water as well. The Bantu language was combined with the language of the Arabic traders or the Islamic traders, Arabic, with some additions of other languages as well to create something called Swahili, a language that becomes very popular and widely used in Africa. This is an example of cultural diffusion, I think, as one language is brought to a place and then other languages are brought to a place and they all kind of combine together to create a new language. There are three notable places to talk about in the southern African geographical region. One of them is called Kilwa, which is a city state on the Indian Ocean. You can see it there on the map. A couple of places that you'll see on the next slide are called the Great Zimbabwe and Mutapa. And these southeastern African political entities grew very wealthy, of course, from the African Indian Ocean trade. Kilwa, as I said, was a city-state, and it is as far south as one can travel with the monsoon or the monsoon winds in one travel season. So when the wind is going north and to the east, it's easy to cross the Indian Ocean from Africa to go up to India. And then when the winds shift and the monsoon winds are going the opposite direction, they're blowing then south and west, then it's easy to go from India back to Africa. The Great Zimbabwe was a southeastern African um, empire that is famous for its stone city with these giant stone walls that surrounded it. It had its heyday and then started to decline. As it declined, some people broke away from it, went and established the Mutapa Empire, which became an even more powerful state, kind of expanded beyond what the Great Zimbabwe was and dominating the southern part of Africa. In the late 15th century and the late yes, or late 1400s, the Portuguese, these people from Europe, arrived by ship, and they started to interfere with and eventually conquer a lot of these coastal cities. Now, the Europeans at this point in time had gunpowder technology, so they had firearms, they had cannon, and they had a very kind of thuggish mentality or thuggish philosophy of whatever they came across, if they were stronger than it, then they would simply take. And instead of just showing up and trading, for example. And they also had a kind of crusading mentality. They're bringing Christianity with them. They think that Christianity is the one true religion, and all other religions are just false. So they start to take over these East African port cities. They even go and are able to interfere with the political situation in the Mutapa Empire. Can't conquer it, but they can support weaker leaders of the Mutapan Empire and just kind of mess with it in that way. And so for about the next 200 years, the Portuguese are able to control this area with with quite a bit of influence. I think it's really important to mention because we started this entire unit with the creation of Islam, how Islam influenced this area as well. Islam as a religion spreads along the East Coast because of trade. As Arab traders come to these places, they are bringing with them their religious beliefs, and the people who are there listen to these religious beliefs, and some of those people do adopt them. In fact, one could say that the more successful people, the political rulers, the city officials, wealthy merchants from Africa, they adopted Islam, they became Muslim, while most of the rest of the people in Africa, in these coastal cities, retained their traditional beliefs for a while. Arab Muslim traders were very instrumental in bringing a lot of different kinds of products to the coast of Africa and then taking African products back to other places like India and Persia and Arabia. Sadly, part of that trade is not really well known, I think, by most people, but there was really quite an active slave trade with with Arab people buying Africans and taking them to other places. And this is too a kind of cultural diffusion or migration as people are taken forcibly from one place to another. They aren't taken in the same numbers that you might see happening later in world history with the west coast of Africa and West Africans being brought to the New World, but it is a number of people nonetheless. And those slaves, of course, were traded to the Middle East. They were traded to India and become part of the population there. I hope that this unit has been somewhat informative for you, and I would like you to go ahead and take the lecture check on in your essential questions. Thanks so much. Bye bye.